Yo, what is up? Lee Snyder, aka DFS Advisor, here to talk some La Liga football. We've got a showdown slate for the return of the La Liga season at 3 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. 40K GPP, not bad at all. Speaking of soccer, we are going to have an insane amount of soccer for the rest of June. Based on my quick review of the calendar, we should have at least one DK slate on every day for the rest of this month. And we're probably going to see the same thing happen in July as these seasons wrap up around the first week of August. So, if you are interested in making a little money playing DFS soccer on DraftKings over the next couple months, please hit the subscribe button below. I will be putting out as much video content as humanly possible over the next 8 or so weeks. So definitely check it out. All right, as far as the slate that we have this afternoon, it is a matchup between Betis and so I'm going to have to get an official comment from Gator Guy or David Peters here, but I always thought it was Sevilla. But apparently if you're saying it as an English speaker, you're supposed to say Seville. So it's a matchup between Betis and Seville. If we were speaking Spanish, it is Sevilla. Nonetheless, I've always said Sevilla, and I think a lot of people who are talking about the football team actually say that. Based on the Google research I did, apparently the football team is called Sevilla by English speakers, but that sounds pretentious. So pretentious or not, we've got a matchup between Betis and Sevilla here. These are the predicted starting lineups. On the Sevilla side, the biggest thing to look out for is this left wing position here. Lucas Ocampos is a really talented player, but he is struggling with some injuries right now. So Nolito is expected to start for him over here. And then, just to quickly go over, I'm going to go through my projections in a moment here, but to kind of go through the players that I'll be looking at. So from a macro perspective here, I think this is a match that Sevilla should dominate. They should have the majority of the possession and chances here. So I think probably a 4-2 or 5-1 stack in favor of Sevilla is going to be the way to go here. Sevilla or Seville is one of the few teams in La Liga that does cross at a high rate. And it just so happens that Betis actually allows a fairly high number of crosses. So immediately that puts me onto Jesus Navas and Regulan, the two fullbacks. And then also Suso is an open play crosser. So he's another player to look out for, although he is a bit overpriced, especially in terms of his predicted minutes, which is probably something like 70. And then as far as set pieces on the Sevilla side, Banega, Jordan, and Suso can all take, and they all have this season. But Banega should have like a 50 to 75% share when he is on the field. So he's going to be the primary taker. I'm not going to play Suso because of a role on set pieces because he's just too expensive, frankly. However, Joan Jordan over here, or Joanne, who knows with these names. Jordan is only 5K. And so if you're getting a player at 5K that has a role on, corners or direct free kicks, there's some value there. So definitely a player to look at. On the Betis side, there's only probably two guys that I'm definitely targeting, and that's going to be Fekir, their most talented player, nice floor, also the highest ceiling on the team. And then Sergio Canales, he is the primary set piece taker. Although, again, we have a situation where multiple guys could take corners or free kicks here. So, Fekir has chipped in, especially over the last couple matches that they played before the break. Joaquin, another player that can contribute. And even Guardado at times has taken some. But again, I think it's a situation where we should see Canales with about a 50% share here. All right. So here are my projections. Right now it's sorted by expected DK floor. So these are the types of players that are going to be strong options for cash. And like I mentioned, I think that the Sevilla stack, like 4-2 or 5-1 is in play here. And the projections confirm that because if you look at the top 10 projected players, there are only 2 from Betis, 8 from Sevilla. So that kind of tells you the story right there. But anyway, so all of these guys have strong floors. It's a lot of the guys I mentioned: Banega, Fekir, Reguilon, and Navas. Haddadi and Ocampos, I don't think either of them start here. Suso does show pretty strongly in terms of floor, but again, I do have some concern about his minutes, especially for that salary. Plus, you can just get Canales for 2K less. And then rounding out that top 10 is Jordan, who I mentioned, who's only at 5K. So all those guys are definitely strong cash plays. Emerson is a fullback for Betis. He's also in that conversation. If we want to look at upside for GPPs instead, we can sort by the full projection. You're going to see that a lot of these same guys are popping up that had the high floor, so that means they're definitely in the optimal play conversation. But as we go down past some of the cash options, Luke de Jong, center forward for Sevilla, he's going to be a good GPP option. As you can see, the floor is not as safe. Franco Vasquez, if he got a start, but I think it's going to be Nolito instead. Nolito is fine in GPP, but I don't trust his minutes or his floor at that price for cash. Laurent Moron from Betis, he's their central striker, pretty cheap at 6,200, and he has like 35% implied scoring odds on the slate, so not a terrible contrarian option there. There's no one that really stands out once we get down here. So again, overall strategy, certainly if we're talking cash or optimal, I think it's going to be probably a 4-2 Sevilla stack, maybe even 5-1. I think that could certainly work, depending on the build you want to make. I think both in GPP, certainly, both goalkeepers are in play here. If we're talking about potential game flows, if Sevilla dominates possession and chances but struggles to score, then you could see Joel Robles, the keeper for Betis, have a nice, high save game. If he keeps a clean sheet, even better. A similar situation where you could play Robles would be maybe captaining Fekir, hoping he gets the only goal of the game, and then players like Navas, Jordan, Banega, Suso start firing in crosses for the rest of the match, and Robles racks up some saves. You can, flip that narrative too. If, maybe you captain Luke de Jong, he gets an early goal, and then you throw in Vaklik, the keeper for Sevilla, to get that win and clean sheet bonus. And another thing to think about in that scenario is, if Sevilla get an early goal, then, maybe players like Navas and Banega lose some of their value because they don't need to get forward and cross as much. So you just want to think about, especially when you're captaining a player, think about what's the best case scenario for this player, in the captain spot, and then how does that affect the rest of my lineup. And speaking of captains, in cash, I absolutely am going to be on a Sevilla player in the captain spot. I think Banega and even Navas make a lot of sense. Navas, particularly, he's not going to have the upside of a Banega, but at the same time, you can probably fit in almost everyone you want if you're using Navas. All right, so that covers it. Good luck to you today. Go out there and win some money, and I'll see you back next time as I break down a ton of soccer over the next few weeks here. All right, take care.